these people are laughing at me. They're not afraid of me. They're laughing at me. They're mimicking me. Hello, this is Carrie O'Donnell from Tarot Soul Writer. And if you would like a personal reading with me, please go to my website, tarotsoulwriter.com, and I'd be happy to do a reading for you. Today, I am going to reflect on March 2024 predictions. Did I get it right? Or did I get it wrong? So let's begin. I made a prediction at the beginning of the video about Ukraine. I said that there was some good news coming in March, possibly around Ukrainian land occupied by the Russians. There's some sort of good news, a coming together, an agreement that I'm getting sometime in March. This may have to do with the wars overseas, and it could be the Ukraine. This seems like the beginning of some agreements around land taken and occupied by the Russians. This is what did happen in March in the Ukraine war. There were drone strikes, a Zelensky assassination attempt, changes in Russian military leadership, crimes against humanity. There was a call for that in March, that there were crimes against humanity. Ukraine brought spies to justice. Russia launched its largest attack on the Ukraine energy infrastructure. But I didn't get anything specifically that was good news in March, like taking land back. However, in August, it was reported, and this is from U.S. News and World Reports on August 6, Ukrainian forces in early August launched a surprising incursion into Russia's Kursk region near the border, reportedly the largest foreign attack on Russia since World War II. Ukraine took control of some Russian territory amid the offensive, which included thousands of troops, drones, and heavy weaponry. This is what I was seeing when Ukraine was taking the offensive and taking some of the land back. The truth is, I did get this right, but what was wrong was the time period. This happened a little bit later than March, in August. So I got the timing wrong. During that prediction, I was having trouble tuning into Putin. I joked that Putin wasn't there. And when I try to get information on Putin, it's as if he's not there. Isn't that strange? Just not there. Poof. I just don't get much from him. This is what was going on with Putin in March. There were presidential elections. We know that those elections are not free and fair elections. He did win, supposedly by a landslide. And in March, he did extend his rule. It could be that because there was an election, there is an entry point of choice there. And maybe I wasn't really seeing Putin because there was a potential that people could choose a different path, that there could have been more of a revolution, I guess, against Putin. But that didn't happen, and he very much was there. I just couldn't see it. So I don't even know if that's really getting something right or wrong. It just was just something that was part of my experience. And I wrote down here in my reflection that there could be some reasons for this. And I had trouble seeing Trump later on, and we'll get to that in future videos. Now that I'm learning that certain information is not right for me in that moment, I wrote down, like, maybe I don't see them for my own safety. Maybe my consciousness just can't see the truth or deal with the truth of what I would see with Putin or with Trump. Or maybe free will was at play and it was too soon to receive information. So all of those things could be possible. These are just some of the explanations based on my experiences through the year and what happened eventually with the US election that may have come into play for why I couldn't see Putin in March. I also picked up the Israeli and Palestinian conflict. I had predicted that there would be something related to a hostage agreement in March. And I kept seeing water images, sea images. I said, were these sea images in the tunnels? Was this some sort of water violence, that type of thing? But I knew that water was involved with some of the predictions. I'm also feeling the Israeli and Palestinian conflict around March, and I hadn't been getting any information on that yet. But this, I felt some agreements around this conflict as well. It might be related to hostages. I keep getting these water images. Water, water, water. I got that water boy image with Trump. And this time I was with Israel and Palestine. I was getting water images. What did happen? On March 18th, Israel attacked a hospital in Gaza and outraged the world. This was a pretty big turning point event. On March 25th, the United Nations passed a ceasefire resolution for Ramadan, the holiday, to help get humanitarian aid in. And that was according to the United Nations website. I also wrote down from their website, they called this Resolution 2728. It called for the immediate release of hostages and for ensuring humanitarian access to Gaza. That's a direct quote. So there was some sort of, in a sense, hostage negotiation through this agreement. And then I tried to look up where this water imagery was coming from. And I did get a report, not in the month of March, but in the month of August. The Guardian reported a whole article on water violence in that region. So I reflected, the water I saw in my meditation could be the water related to violence that had been occurring since 2023. However, I did not find any particular water violence event that led to this particular ceasefire. Hospitals have been struggling without adequate water for some time. Water is life. Maybe this attack on the hospital was the straw that broke the camel's back. So there was reporting of water violence potentially in this time period. We know that was preventing humanitarian care for the people in March, and we know it led to a resolution to help the people in Gaza and also a way of negotiating for the hostages. So for the most part, I think I got this right. My next prediction was about ET intervention within the conflicts of these wars, the Middle East and Ukraine. Although I remember when I did the reading, I was getting more the Middle East than I was getting Ukraine. And I was saying that I felt like there was some ET intervention. I was also getting ET help, especially with the wars in Europe and Israel-Palestine. There seems to be some sort of ET intervention, and there's some sort of communication there. Here's the problem with that prediction. We're in a non-disclosure kind of situation. So I can't really find any evidence of ETs are helping. I think that would be impossible. So I can't really prove that the prediction is right or wrong. But I did find an article about the congressional hearings that came out later in 2024. In one article from the Economic Times, they said, in a U.S. Congress hearing, U.S. lawmakers revealed shocking new information about UFOs, or as they're now called, unidentified anomalous phenomena. Witnesses testified about secret footage of a white orb UFO off the coast of Kuwait, advanced alien technology, and possibly mind control connections. NASA and the Department of Defense officials shared details about the UAP sightings over sensitive military sites, sparking serious questions about national security. This happened in 2017. So this is a documented sighting in the Middle East. Would there be more around the war? There were not really good sources that said that there were, but nothing where you could say, okay, Congress has identified that there were sightings. But during this year, in 2024, ETs did become a very big deal. And the government was starting to acknowledge that ETs exist and may have been interfering in our society. So I'm going to give this a yes, no, because really, I can't prove it. But there are some disclosures that are coming out to say, yeah, I think the ETs are monitoring certain conflicts on the planet. A big section of this video was Trump in March. The first thing that I had picked up was the word removal. Removal. So I said, is this from the ballots, the Republican Party, the nomination? I did get the idea of a removal. I'm going to say removal from a ballot in some states, or removal from the Republican Party, or removal from the nomination for the Republican Party. Removal. It's like he's gone. We're removing him from being in play. On March 4th, the Supreme Court ruled that Trump cannot be excluded from Colorado's primary election ballot because of the January 6th event. Now, is this necessarily good news for everybody? Not really. But it did affect all the other states. It affected the whole election. It was a very significant ruling. So in that case, I feel like I got this one right. I also got Trump fleeing. And I said directly in the video, I didn't think he would actually flee, but I was getting that he was thinking about fleeing. He felt trapped. He felt like the gig is up. I feel like for Trump, everything is going to be very real for him now. And I was getting the message that this could be the month in which he tries to flee. He's either thinking about fleeing, he makes an attempt to flee, he tries to make plans to flee. If he flees to a foreign country in any time period, it would be the month of March. So I asked, what is happening with Trump in the month of March that he would be feeling this way? There was a lot coming in on Trump. The first thing that I got was blackmail fraud. And I had predicted maybe some sort of evidence was coming out on Trump that would be really black and white, where everyone could see. And I was getting words like blackmail and fraud. And this is going to come up again when I tell you about the Trump cards. But I do feel a lot that was hidden with Trump is going to come out in full force and in black and white, where most American people cannot deny it. Like, it's there. Now, I think the fraud money was the New York fraud situation that was resolving itself in February. That was the one that I was mixing it up with the IRS or taxes. And he had to pay a significant chunk of change. It was like $400 and something million in order to make that right. So this could have been his assets being potentially seized, because money is life for Trump. As far as the evidence in black and white of fraud, I do feel like related to that particular case in New York, it was black and white. He was found guilty of fraud. I said later on in the video that Trump was having issues with money and that he wasn't getting support from his former allies, especially Putin and Netanyahu, who didn't seem to be around for help. It was almost like he was waiting for some sort of foreign help. Is that he's running out of money. So I get assets may be seized. People are turning away. And I think what they mean is donors or people in the Republican Party, because I got that sort of split or removal from the Republican Party. He's not getting financial support. And I got him alone. I got him on an island. His international collaboration has fallen apart. Putin seems to be missing and Netanyahu seems to be neutralized. But the truth was, Putin was busy with the war, his own war in the Ukraine, and Netanyahu had his own problems with war over the Gaza Strip. So they didn't really have time for Trump, and he was really having trouble raising money. I did find an article, is it Reuters, that said, donors helping to pay for Trump's bonds could draw scrutiny from election regulators or federal prosecutors if the benefactors were to give Trump amounts exceeding campaign contribution limits. So there was a little bit of nervousness there. While the payment would not be a direct donation to Trump's campaign, federal laws broadly define political contributions as anything of value provided to a campaign. Some 30 surety companies approached through 4 separate brokers turned down Trump's attempts to secure the original bond needed to cover the $454 million judgment his lawyer said earlier in March. So he was having trouble raising money. No, the foreign money was not coming in, like secretly. He didn't have enough. And in fact, a lot of companies said no to Trump. So those could have been people that he thought would be in the bag, or his friends or his donors. On March 25th, however, New York appeals court lowered Trump's bond, which stopped Trump's assets from being seized. So a lot there with Trump's assets and his money. And yes, he was having money troubles. So I got a lot of this right. Trump and madness. I said that it was going to be really apparent in March that Trump was off his rocker. Not so crazy. And with Trump's overall mental health, we're going to be dealing with a crisis point with him. Like, I get real madness. Apparent to all, okay, like a psychotic break. In fact, I really did a lot of searching, and it's so hard with Trump because everything, in my opinion, he says is a little nuts. However, there was certain things he said in March that took his rhetoric to another level that kind of showed, okay, this guy is mad. And the first thing was when he said, if we don't win this election, I don't think you're going to have another election in this country. And then another area or a section of his speech, I believe this was, they said in his speech about placing tariffs on imported cars and foreign competition for the U.S. auto industry. It may have been in Ohio. And he declared, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole country. It was like in the middle of a speech about tariffs. So there won't be another election. It's going to be a bloodbath. And then he threw in, he also said immigrants are not people in the month of March. On March 11th on Truth Social, he posted, free the January 6 hostages being wrongfully imprisoned. He also said he would pardon the January 6 insurrectionists if elected. So I'm going to pardon the insurrectionists. There would be no more elections, and it was going to be a bloodbath. It's like upping his rhetoric in March. And yes, I do feel like it made people think he was a madman, a certain group of people. So in this case, I feel I got it right. I also did a lot of predictions on the January 6th trial, especially around Judge Chutkan. I think because I was already on the wrong path in February and there was a change in the trial date, she ruled that she was going to wait for the decision on presidential immunity. And because of that, everything I think that I predicted on that just kind of went off on a different path. I kind of feel that January 6th judge, is it Chutkan? I feel like she's coming down on him. She's going to make probably a very shocking ruling. She is going to in some way take control of his madness. And the country cheers. His behavior is childish and petty. I do believe he says more things against that judge, Chutkan. But I saw her putting down her gavel. He will be neutralized. There were no actual threats against her that I could find. In fact, it was after things started to rev up in October, we got more threats against her as a judge, or the rhetoric around her ramped up. Again, everything was off kilter for a number of months. So unfortunately, I got these predictions wrong. I also pointed out a sexual misconduct or scandal around Trump. And even though we got a lot of information based on the hush money trial that was getting ready to begin, we already know that he was convicted in the E. Jean Carroll case. I always felt like there was something else that was coming out, something that was next level. I also got sexual encounters that are shocking coming to the surface. So we know he's had some shocking sexual encounters. I actually got another level. In fact, I got something at the end about a document that could seal Trump's fate. There is a document that is highlighted. This is either a letter or a communication of some sort that seals his fate. Well, the truth is, later on in the year, we did find out that he may have had some sort of inappropriate activity with a 13-year-old girl in the 1990s. This was a case that was covered up and silenced. And there were documents that had come back up right before the election that didn't look too good for Donald Trump. However, this is all alleged. He was not convicted of anything, but that may have been what I was picking up. And the timing on this was a little bit off. This came out more right before the election. For March, I really didn't find anything of significance. And because even when this information came out, it was swept under the carpet again, nothing really came of it. I will say that I got this prediction wrong. Female energy, I got it really rising, including important women who are going to get out there and start fighting for their rights. Again, with the female energy, the Queen of Wands and the crone wisdom, and I got that queen celebrating with her wand. It's funny that the card in the deck that I used was another woman of color, but I do get women are celebrating, women are taking control. The rebelliousness of February comes to a head in March, and I feel a political shift. Everybody in the government is on notice. They know they won't win. They have made a lethal mistake. I see powerful women stepping forward in March and taking control. That actually did happen in March. It was International Women's Day on March 8th, and that did include women's marches, women marching. The theme for this year was Count Her In, Invest in Women. And a lot of important women came forward during that time for International Women's Day. So that was most likely the energy I was feeling. I did get that prediction right. And finally, my funniest and most unusual prediction was my drag queen image. I got a bunch of drag queens that were mimicking or making fun of Donald Trump. And I just thought that that was an interesting image. It was funny. Drag queens, and they had on all they had all the costumes on, and they were sort of playing the role of a mime or a joker. And I saw them mimicking Trump and making fun of him and pointing at him and laughing at him. And they were very definitely drag queens. And I'm very convinced this was the Oscars. Jimmy Kimmel basically took a live tweet that Trump had made. I'm calling it a tweet. I think it was on Truth Social, where he was putting down Oscars, Jimmy Kimmel doing something, saying he was boring. And in real time, he made the decision to basically diss him live on TV. This caused a huge uproar of people laughing at Jimmy Kimmel, which Donald Trump would totally, with his ego, feel like these people are laughing at me. They're not afraid of me. They're laughing at me. They're mimicking me. So in that moment, I feel like, and my viewers agreed, that was one of the few things that I got texts about, like, oh, you're drag queens? It was the Oscars, because he was being made fun of. So I do feel like I got this one right. Those were my predictions for March 2024. Got some wrong. And it was one of those things. I started to get some things wrong and they just continued to be wrong. Once you got wrong on a certain chain, it just seemed like all that energy got on a different path, especially with the January 6th trial. Some that I almost got, but that goes back to that idea of context. What's literal? What's figurative? How do we put together the pieces of the puzzle? And some things were just off with timing. But overall, I think I did a pretty good job for March. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share this video with all your friends. As always, it's a pleasure reading for you. Bye-bye.